Good morning to everybody in the Barnsley Canal group. My name's James Crampton. I created the group about 5 years ago to learn more about the canal, and it's great to see all the success and interest that it's brought. My intention this year, if it's popular and wanted, I'm going to do several videos on different sections of the canal showing its history. But today the first video that I'm doing will not be the canal, it'll be an extension of the canal, which is the Silkstone Waggon Way. And I'm starting off in Ag Woods, and this is the Usker mine. So the Usker mine was a drift mine down here, and back in 1838 there was a disaster where 27 children was killed. What happened was there was a big storm, the lift didn't work, and they decided to come up the drift mine. On the drift mine there's doors that closed behind them. It was that much of a storm. There is a little stream, it's very hard to see from here, but it actually flooded and unfortunately killed all the children, all of them between the ages of 7 to 17 I think it was. The Waggon Way, which was an extension of the canal, actually passed by here and finished up just at a colliery just below us. So I'm going to take you along the Waggon Way and explain what goes off. I do apologise, I'm no technical whiz-bid, I don't know how to edit videos, so I'll be doing it as a case of pausing and restarting, so I do apologise for that. So let's just see how it goes. Thank you. So I'm now at the entrance of Ag Wood, and the reason why I've come here is because the Usker mine pit disaster that I mentioned, memorial was placed here in 1988 to mark the 150th anniversary of the Usker pit disaster. You can see here 26 children drowned, 1838. So a lovely dedication to the children that lost their lives. So I'm now just out of Ag Wood. To be honest, there isn't much evidence of the Silkstone Waggon Way between here and Silkstone, but what there is, I am going to try and show you the evidence of what's left. So just going off track a bit, I'm now on the Trans Trail, which is just outside Ag Wood. Just up there is the Silkstone tunnels, and just to give you a bit of history, just after the Silkstone tunnels is unfortunately a very famous bridge. This is where, if I get it correctly, in 1991 Michael Sams kidnapped an estate agent and led the police to put the money on a bridge that he then pulled down on his motorbike, came through the Silkstone tunnels and rode all the way down to Stainborough, where he got in his car. Police struggled to find him. They released some audio footage a few weeks later, and his ex-wife recognised the noise of him walking on his false leg, and that's how they caught him. He's now in his 80s, in prison. He's obviously gone for parole several times, and the police or prosecution still believe he's a danger to society, so he's still in prison. So, as mentioned before, there's not that much evidence of the Waggon Way. A lot of it's been built over. This was one of two of the inclined planes. The Waggon Way was pulled by horses, but on the inclined planes there was a steam driven motor at what was called Black Horse Farm that not only powered them up the inclined plane but also did the braking for them as well. So let's go see what we can find. I've actually come off the main road onto a footpath, and where it's brought me out, if you look down there, that is actually part of the inclined plane, and it would have directly gone up there. There's a house, if you can see it, that was there at the time of the Waggon Way. But from here to the Silkstone train station there's very little evidence left of it. So I'm just outside Silkstone train station, or Silkstone Common train station. Roughly around this area there would have been a tunnel that came out for the Waggon Way called the Black Horse Tunnel. At the other side of Silkstone train station is this plaque marking the Black Horse Tunnel, 1830. The entrance is in a private garden behind this, which I believe there's still evidence to. Right, I'm now halfway down the steep road from Silkstone Common to Silkstone. If you can see that tree line, that is what is the second incline plane of the Waggon Way. I know there's a very sturdy bridge, which is over 200 years old, that is down there somewhere, that carried the Waggon Way over the river, Silkstone Beck. I've never found it. But this is the first time I'm going to take this pathway down, so maybe this is the day that I find it. We'll find out in a minute. Come off the main road down the footpath. I'm roughly halfway between Silkstone Common and Silkstone. I found some evidence of the Silkstone Waggon Way, and it goes down there. Just to give you a bit of more history on the Silkstone Waggon Way with the canal. So the canal finished at Barnaby Basin. The Canal Authority at the time was going to extend the canal up to Silkstone. I have a theory on that, which I'll show you later on. But instead, the Canal Authority built the Waggon Way up to Silkstone, which is roughly 2 miles. And Mr. Clark, who lived in Noblethorpe House, paid for it to be extended up to this incline plane and down towards Usker Mine. So it totaled 4 miles. But round this area was roughly 20 coal mines. I'm not talking about the coal mines from the 1950s, 1960s, 70s and 80s. I'm talking about the coal mines from the 1800s. So with all the branch lines, there was roughly about 20 miles worth of track. Right, we'll carry on. Right then, so I've just come down a bit, and this bridge that I've looked for several times, I believe I found it. You've got to bear in mind, this bridge is over 200 years old, built in 1830. So I'll just turn the camera around. Yes, I have found this bridge. I'll let you all have a look at it. So there you go. Sturdy bridge, 200-year-old. Just shows what the engineering was like back in their days. And on top is the Silkstone Waggon Way. I'm very pleased myself. I found it. Several times I've tried to find it. So really pleased that I've got it today. So I'm now in Silkstone. This is an example of one of the wagons on the Waggon Way. Carry between 10 to 15 tonne. Pulled by horses, and you can see the tracks. This was known as Silkstone Cross, and where the Asda garage is now was a Tommy shop that was owned by Mr. Clark, who built the Waggon Way. He also rented his houses out to the employees, so the employees never had much money because they either spent it on rent or spent it at the Tommy shop. So Mr. Clark was a very clever guy and always got his money back. So still in Silkstone, this is where we get to see the real evidence of the Waggon Way. These were the blocks that were placed on the Waggon Way for the metal tramway to run across. You can see the holes where it were pivoted into, and as we get further along we'll see better evidence of this. I'm now outside the Red Lion pub in Silkstone, where there's an inquest into the Usker Pit disaster, which tells you a bit about the history. As a result of this disaster, I think it was early in 1840s, Queen Victoria made a law that nobody under the age of 10 could go down a mine. So I'm now at Silkstone Church in the graveyard. All the children that died in the Usker mine disaster were actually buried in this graveyard, but in unmarked graves because the parents couldn't afford to buy it. But a memorial was put up to the children. As you can see, it's got all the names on, very young, 7-year-old, 8, 9, 10-year-old, First time I've just realised this today. It's devastating to lose a child, but if you look, there's two sets of brothers on there as well. I'm now just at the side of Pothouse Hamlet in Silkstone, and there's even better evidence here of the tramway, the stones at each side. You can definitely see the pivot holes for the track, and the stones were placed diagonally so the horses were walking on the stones rather than in the mud. So I'm now up on the opposite road of Pothouse Hamlet, ready to walk down to on the wagon way down to Barnsley Basin. I did mention earlier the canal authority at the time was planning to extend the canal up to Silkstone. They'd have done that. I'm assuming, it's my own assumptions, that this would have probably become the Silkstone Basin. After the canal authority extended the wagon way up to here, it was then the Mr. Clark who spent the money to extend it, and all the other coal mines paid to have branch lines off to it. At the end of the day, this was the Silkstone seam of the coal. It was apparently the best coal you could get. It would burn longer with less smoke and even less ash residue, and was shipped all over the country. So this is an example of what the tramway would have looked like, pivoted onto the stone blocks. I suppose a memorial in memory of it. It was built in 1809, all the way to Silkstone. Mr. Clark extended it 1830, but by the 1850s it had stopped being used because of all the railway lines. The track was actually lifted, I'm guessing for recycling, scrap value in I think it was 1872. Some of the track was actually on display at the York Railway Museum up until the late 1920s, but other than that there's no evidence of it left. So I'm halfway down between Silkstone and Barnsley Basin. This is Low Mill Farm. There used to be a colliery here. There was a colliery to the left. In fact, there's lots of collieries in this area, and if you know what you're looking for, you can find evidence of them there. Some of them you can see that have been capped off, other bits of remaining buildings. So I'm now at Barnsley Furnace. What I'm actually videoing now is the train line. That was the branch line just below the Miller's pub in Low Bark Green. This is essentially the train line that basically killed the wagon way in the 1850s. And later, around 1902, the canal stopped being used between just below the Miller's pub up to Barnsley Basin because of this train line. There was actually a very big coal mine round here. There's very little of it left now, very little evidence at all. If you carried up on that path up into the woods and you know what you're looking for, you'll actually see lots of day holes. So I'm at the end of the wagon way at Barnsley. So the wagon way would have gone across the road to the canal basin at Barnsley, which is just over there. In this field over here there would have been a small reservoir that would then feed the canal. There is some evidence further down this road of where the water would have travelled under the road for the canal, but with all the overgrowth it's not possible. And if you look over here, there's another example of the tracks, and there's a board showing you about the evidence of what was down here. There's a warehouse behind the White House down to the Miller's Inn. It's all on private land now. I have been lucky enough to be invited a couple of years ago. There's a dry dock, there's old lime kilns, and there's even a small aqueduct. If I can get permission for a future video, I'll see if I can video what's there. Thank you.